Okay, the next card is the Three of Cups again, that we remember from the Smurf Tarot, right? I will put it right here where I can see it. So, meditation. What does it mean? What can you do with it? How can I carry over to you how it is that I really work? I suppose in order of time, the way it happened was my mother was always very interested in chakra meditation, and the word Kundalini was fairly normal in the house where I grew up. However, looking back, I come to the conclusion that you cannot really talk about energy work if your personal life is a total mess, or if you are, emotionally starved or blocked the way I was. So the work always has to come from two sides. And maybe the Three of Cups with the three waterfalls going down like that is a very apt image for that, because there's one waterfall that has to do with, my personal processes of dealing with old emotions, whatever type. There's one side of me that sees energies and feels acutely, sometimes quite unexpectedly, what is happening to people and what may be done about that. And there's the middle, right? There's the everyday life, the type of things that you still have to do, the preferences, the creative life as well. So, by creative, in my case, writing and drawing and all that. So, yeah, maybe those two left and right sides are passive and receptive, and the middle one is active. That's one way of looking at it, okay? So, here it is again. Very long waterfalls. It is very, very difficult to pass from a state of emotional upheaval, for whatever cause, into a state of calm. But I have found ever and ever again that in order to achieve anything, if I ever want to get anywhere with my life, if I ever want to be remotely at peace again, so that I can actually produce something new, something better, something brighter, I will have to find a way to attain calm, a state of emotional balance, relative well-being, and a sense of flow in a way, mainly that. I can deal with much more nowadays, now that I have managed to work with some of my old issues that I was struggling with before. Those things had to be dealt with first. And in the time when I had no hope really of any real access to the problems underneath the surface, because I was simply, I had no access to that. That is, for me, the mystery of the soul retrieval, right? I experienced a reconnection with a part of myself that had been completely and utterly lost to me. So lost, in fact, that I had no notion where to look. It is because of the Brian Weiss video on soul retrieval, the soul retrieval meditation that you did during that video, that I even remotely got in close to experiencing that. And even then, it still took me 3 years, and there had a lot of things had to happen before I could really reconnect with that part of myself. And I still, to this day, have no idea really what happened. But in that time, when everything was it was impossible for any change to occur, really, I already meditated, and I looked for silence inside myself. I had learned to do some form of Kundalini work. I knew about the energy of the chakras, that it would be a good idea for the energy to go upwards, to transform, one by one, passing each of the chakras. And then, yes, my mother worked with that as well, and she taught me some of those things. However, I have made more progress in the period recently, when I've been in this house where I lived for the past 5 years, and I've had the opportunity to make a place for myself where I can sit, which is reserved strictly for meditation purposes. And I have also investigated different techniques and different strategies to find focus. Maybe one of the positive things that I learned in the past, when I was a student and a college student, is that I managed to have a rather good level of concentration. So nowadays, it's a bit less easy for me to concentrate. But back in the day, I used to be able to focus on single-mindedly for several hours on one thing. Maybe it's unnatural for a 16-year-old to be able to do that, but it was what worked for me, right? And so that's one thing. And I suppose I've always been looking for light. And the first real spiritual experiences that I've had must have been where I encountered the energy or the feeling of the crown chakra. So after this guided meditation thing going upwards, you'd land over here, and I would realize or feel that there was like a step that you had to take inwardly towards the field of the crown chakra, moving inside your own skull like that, and there would be a different feeling. The feeling of the crown chakra itself was already much more peaceful and wider, and there were no real struggles there. Everything was much brighter and wider. I think that was my introduction to what I call the white light experience, type of experience. For a very long time, I have had only that, and nothing much else happened, or I couldn't really contribute anymore or find anymore. It's really with the internet that I have been able to research more into Tibetan Buddhism, among other things, where I have encountered a meditation strategy that involves focusing on inner silence, and with the help of some other tools that I could use at the time, I have gotten to sort of, you can actually see that there are nuggets of silence inside you, and for me they are against my backbone, and they're not the chakras. They're separate and more intimate and deeper than the chakras are. The chakras have, for me, everything to do with also the functioning of the body and the organism and all of your energy field outward. Okay, they are like projections outward of the same, it's the same energy still, but for us to reconnect with a deeper level of silence, this is really a very good way. I'll put a link down below in the description of a video that I have found rather helpful. It's by a Tibetan monk called Lig Mincha, and he describes this, the 3 refuges it's called, and there is a lot of research has been done in Tibet into this, and they have sutras they chant and work they put into this. And to me, all this feels very familiar. It could be that I have been there in a former life, but I have no memory whatsoever of this. So to me, it's just a wonderful part of my life that I have been introduced to by different ways and means. I have also at some point been made aware of this using energy products that are slightly reminiscent of crystals, except they're natural oil-based, essential oil-based. And they, yes, there's ways to find the way inward, and I think maybe nowadays it would be easier because many more people are working on this stuff anyway. So it's a natural phenomenon. If you look at me, imagine me like this, you know, sideways, so you can see my spine inside my body, right? Then all my emotional life, my personal emotional travails, okay, it is at the front of me. It is in my skin and in my organs and in my flesh, okay? When I move inward, and this is what Lig Minsha stresses also in his approach, you look for silence inside yourself, and then you find it. And there's several points where you can, what he calls the 3 refuges. They are the stillness in the lower belly, the lower part of the body, the silence in the heart area, and spaciousness in the mental area, in the brain, in the thought world. So if it is at all possible, that's the most important part for me for any type meditation, because with the shift in focus from being involved, being complex about everything, I go over to a state of utter simplicity. It's a different state. It isn't something I recognize as myself, really. So that's how big the difference really is. But it is really inside myself, inside my body, and I can access it anytime I want, really. But I don't really do it out there in the world all the time, because it would really look very strange, wouldn't it, if you just go blank, happy Buddha face and nothing happens, because that's the other part of the story. The silent parts inside us are like nuggets of truth. They're nuggets of soul embedded, I should say, in our bodies, but they are also guarded. So it takes time for us to get to those parts and link ever so slightly with them. And each time and time again, I have to make the effort. I have to take the step towards that. I have to make the choice. The choice is mine, whether I live in spaciousness and in peace for the rest of the day, or whether I stay in my turmoil and my troubles. And so that's really the opposition in my life. These 2 worlds have always existed together, really, and all I can do is live in the middle and try to make the most of it, really. So the silence is something that has been introduced to me in several other ways. There's I believe in other levels of consciousness. I believe consciousness is very much a matter of where from do you speak? From which part of your person do you speak? Do you think? Do you perceive even? That's quite a big deal to me, because I have found that if I look from, say, the silent part in my heart or close to it, I get a very detailed and very expressive picture, consistently the same picture over the years of my own energy field. And so that's a result, right? I can work with that. And I will be going into how that looks in the next video. But I have a couple more points to stress regarding the 3 refuges type work. Is that you learn to distinguish, I have learned to distinguish between the personal, the other personal, and the non-personal. This is really, it's become very obvious to me what all this means. It means that in many cases, when there is a personal problem or a personal type attachment, right? That's a typically Buddhist term right there. There's an attachment to a part of the world, or there's an identification to an issue. I have to be my mother's daughter, that kind of thing. That's extremely personal, right? The same story has the other personal energy to it, coming from my mother, what my mother had to say on the matter. And there was a lot of that. And there wasn't really, in the years, not enough of me contributing to that story. So that was one of the problems, right? Then again, there may also be like what people call entities present, or negative influences that aren't really mine or hers, but that influence the situation as well. So that's what I would call a non-personal influence. And there's some of those. I personally do not really go for the whole entities in a house type thing. I think there are attachments, lots and lots of attachments, and they can even be dangerous, but most times people are really keen on survival, so they will figure a way out nowadays, at least, ways to make sense of things, and to get rid of whatever it is that's bothering them. Then again, there is also, on the personal level, a great deal of comfort associated. We are comfortable with pain, and that's something that can be rather, scary to look at, because we don't really do well. We think that we have to be positive and upbeat and happy, and anything else is weird. But secretly, we hide inside our own miserable, lack of belief and lack of all sorts of things in ourselves, and we think we have done enough. So the world of the silence, the world of the silent nuggets inside us, is pretty much merciless. Again, there you go. Again, there's that word. So you have to, sort of patiently whittle away at it. And it's very much a personal process, how far in you want to go, what steps you want to take. But there's a world of riches in there, and sometimes extraordinary solutions can be found also to things that are really bugging us, and that sometimes we suffer way too much, and the time for the use of suffering, I think it is almost over. So we should try to unstick our tendrils from all this suffering to some extent, when it's possible, of course. And sometimes doing that involves, taking stock of everything and embracing everything that has hurt us, and all those type of forgiveness and completion and all that type of stuff. So there is always going to be, for now in the world, for us and for me certainly, there is a struggle between adherence and surrender to the silence and the light and the bliss on the one hand, and identification with whatever it is that at this moment today I feel most appropriate for me to, to believe in. And that's the heart right there. It's really, every day for me, it's a personal choice how much I want to do, and whether I can see, things being blocked. And because I have done this now, this silent search and this energy clearing work I have done for several years now, very regularly, I get more and more sensitive to disharmony. So that's a problem in and of itself, where the moment I visit relatives or any place where you just walk through a busy street, and I will be uncomfortably aware of the vibrations around me, and that is just a risk of the trade. I think you just have to manage with that. You just have to deal with it. And because I am come into this road, into this path now, I cannot stop anymore. I cannot say, well, this will do. I will just go back to an ordinary lifestyle now. You know how that works, don't you? You can't go back. So for now, that'll be my introduction. I'll put the link down below to Ligmincha and the 3 refuges, and I hope you enjoy that. It's he's a nice guy, so maybe you like that. Thank you for watching.